Good morning and welcome to this edition of DMS 3000 News Live for episode number 52 on this Monday, September 18th, 2023. And I am your host for this great show, Jason DeCanio. And today, hope you had a fantastic weekend, by the way. We have some fantastic topics to look at, and this is going to be an interesting situation today. The last 2 weeks we've had such busy things with Patriot Day and Memorial and Labor Day weekend. So this is kind of like the first of one of the more relaxing weeks that we've had. But next week I will not be here, and I'll explain a little bit of what's going on next week. I also have to talk to the CEO about that as well too, so to let you know that something might be changing just for next week. All right, just for the 1 week for next week. I'll let you know more about that towards the end of the program, okay? So let me go ahead and just fix this. Oh, why? Camera, webcam, every time they do this. I also have a new microphone as well, too. It's not new, actually. It's one I found buried in my electronics bag, and it sounds great, and it's doing the job. So let's go ahead and try it out and see how it works for the day. Today on the show, we've got interesting things. A birthday coming up here. The 172nd birthday of the founding of the New York Times newspaper. Can you believe they've been 172 years old and still trying to print some of the most interesting stuff I've ever seen before? And I used to read the Times very often. In fact, there was a saying that goes, if you read the New York Times, you're one of the more smart people, more of the upper class. I don't buy that stuff at all. Anybody with a brain can read the New York Times, but would you spend $7 to buy the newspaper nowadays? I don't think so. So I'm not really big on it. We'll talk about their 172nd birthday of the founding and give you all the lowdown about the New York Times. Then we have a commentary. Folks, our president again talking crap about climate change and all of this stuff. There's a commentary about it, but then towards the end of the program, I'll give you my editorial about climate change and how we are just wasting our time with a radical theory like this. Okay, we're wasting our time. I live in the state of Florida, for crying out loud, for that matter, and I'll tell you about it later. Okay, you want to talk about climate change? We have it all the time. All right. And then we have an essay on sports nutrition, a historical perspective, a look back at how people used to train for sports and athletic events and how far we've come. So I think that's a pretty good idea, and we'll talk about that. A little bit of a more healthier situation going on today's show. Plus, we also have news of the weird. What day is today? And I found out today is National Cheeseburger Day. We'll look at that a little bit later, okay? Plus, headlines, sports, and other important information. And of course, the ever popular This Is an Editorial, where I basically go off the deep end, and my CEO basically has to yell at me every other day. I'm not worried about that. So let's get on with, of course, our headlines and sports and all the other good stuff we have for today on episode number 52 for the day, Monday, September 18th, 2023. This is the strike fourth day 4 of the UAW strike. GM threatens to send 2,000 workers home. Ford cuts 600 jobs. Auto workers are on strike at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. And an unprecedented move by the United Auto Workers Union. Already there are ripple effects. Yes. Oh, boy. All right. So as we scroll down here. Okay. There's a $250,000 reward offered for the assailant who shot Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said he believed the shooting of Deputy Ryan Klinkenbrummer was a targeted attack, but the motive was not yet known. The U.S. has a primary problem, say advocates who call for new election systems. There's a lot of discontent with America's political system, including with party-based primary elections, so reform advocates are urging states to move to nonpartisan primaries. And young people think climate change is a top issue, but when they vote, it's complicated. Climate change is a major issue for young voters, but so far, it has not been a major mobilizing force in U.S. elections. Some environmental action groups see that changing. And thousands march in New York to demand that Biden end fossil fuels. The protest comes after a summer of extreme weather events and just ahead of a UN summit aimed at prodding global leaders to cut emissions more quickly. U.S. cyclist Sepp Kuss has won Spain's La Vuelta. His biggest rivals, his team. American Sepp Kuss has won La Vuelta, a cycling jewel, after getting help from two teammates who have won 6 Grand Tour titles between them. The plain bagel rule: how naked bread is the ultimate test of a bakery. In a world of everything bagel seasoning and Instagrammable foods, I refuse to stray from the humble, unadulterated bagel. Yes. And after criticism, Drew Barrymore paused his talk show return until Hollywood strikes end. Barrymore's initial decision to return to the air Monday was met with pushback on social media and a revoked invite to host the National Book Awards. And union says UAW and automakers talks are slow as Biden aides prepare to visit. Yes, the United Auto Workers and automakers return to the bargaining table this weekend, but aren't making much progress, according to the union. In fact, I think they want to just continue to be striking so they don't have to work. Yeah. And forecasters cancel warnings as lead begins to dissipate over maritime Canada. A 51-year-old motorist in Searsport, Maine, died in the storm Saturday after a large tree limb fell on his vehicle. Whoa. And the Care and Keeping of You, American Girl's Guide to Puberty, turns 25. It's the 25th anniversary of the Care and Keeping of You from American Girl, eased the adolescent anxieties of the millennial and Gen Z girls who read it. Now the book is marking its 25th anniversary. California sues oil giants, saying they downplayed climate change. And here's what to know. California accuses oil companies of misleading the public on the dangers of fossil fuels for decades. The state demands they help fund recovering efforts after climate change-fueled disasters. Poison ivy is poised to be one of the big winners of the warming world. Rising temperatures and carbon dioxide levels give the toxic vine the oomph it needs to grow earlier, bigger, and itchier, scientists say. Past impeachments, products of their times, often produced unintended consequences. Previous instances of presidential impeachment have each had context unique to their own political moments, and these considerations have mattered as much as the alleged high crimes and misdemeanors. Texas Senate acquits State Attorney General Ken Paxton in impeachment trial. Paxton, who has been suspended, faced 16 articles of impeachment tied to allegations that he abused his office to protect a political donor. The Senate vote reinstates Paxton as Attorney General. British media report rape and emotional abuse allegations against Russell Brand. The British entertainer denies the allegations, but put forward in a joint investigation by the UK's Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4. The Virginia built housing for disabled veterans. The VA is building housing, but a federal rule is locking many out. The nationwide problem stems from a federal rule that counts veterans' federal disability stipends as income. That money, combined with Social Security, can put their income level just high enough to disqualify them from housing. Whoa. Dr. Google meets its match in Dr. Chat GPT. In recent research, AI has done an incredible job at diagnosing health complaints, but should consumers trust unregulated bots with their health care? Doctors see troubling brew. And there you have it, friends. Let's see some more news, see what we've covered here. We've covered the strike. Okay, very good. And pretty much, here's one. 15 has been arrested in a deadly mass shooting at a Baltimore block party. The teen will be charged with 44 counts, including attempted first-degree murder. The shooting that took place at a party over the July 4th holiday weekend left 2 people dead and 28 others wounded. Rolling Stone founder Jane Wenner under fire for comments on female black rockers. The notable music journalist has been removed from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation, the organization announced. Whoa. Prize-winning U.S. Kids author learns a lot when they visit kids in Kenya. Newbery Prize winners Kwame Alexander, a poet, and Jerry Craft, an author and illustrator, went on a mission to Kenya to encourage reading. The kids learned a lot, so did the authors. How Shawn Fain, an unlikely and outspoken president, led the UA to strike. The former union electrician was an underdog in recent UAW leadership elections, but with a tough love approach to auto companies and negotiations. He narrowly won. Now he's taken the union on strike. She chased ego death, first in religion, then in parenthood. Gia Tolentino has a nuanced perspective on her religious upbringing and her subsequent rejection of that belief system, and then what it meant to become a parent. Wow. Biden is meeting with leaders from Israel, Brazil, Ukraine, and the stands this week. President Biden will hold a series of talks with world leaders this week around UN meetings, including a first-ever summit with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Wow. Some very hard to pronounce countries. Wow. Okay. Well, I think we've covered pretty much all of what we need to cover for you on today's headlines. And that is a look, of course, at the headlines for today, September 18th, 2023. We'll have more about headlines on tomorrow's program. Now, let's go, of course, to MLB.com. And, folks, we're getting into the last, I said it before, we're getting into the last 2 weeks of the season. But there's some breaking news I've wanted to talk to you about, and I'm going to talk about it right now. The O's trying to wake up the world up after clinching the playoff berth. Brandon Hyde called 2 of the Orioles' veterans leaders, right-hander Kyle Gibson and catcher James McCann, into the manager's office on Sunday morning. The team had wavered back and forth about how to react when Baltimore eventually clinched a postseason berth, so there was a discussion to be had. The Orioles have larger goals, such as their first American League East title since 2014, but they also have a core of young players who have never been part of a champagne celebration in a big league clubhouse. They also have more experienced players, those who endured the club's recent down years who hadn't been in one either. The consensus was this: if Baltimore clinched Sunday, which happened, when Texas lost to Cleveland, and also won its series finale versus Tampa Bay, then the party would be on. This October, the Orioles are returning to the postseason for the first time since 2016 after a thrilling 5-4 walk-off victory at Camden Yards, and they let everybody know it. This is awesome, said catcher Adley Rutschman, who looked around and soaked in his teammates' enjoyment as the music blared inside Baltimore's clubhouse. I didn't know it was going to be like this, but this is great. The remaining games for the Orioles, you have 3 at Houston, 4 at Cleveland, 2 against Washington, and 4 against Boston. The Orioles at 93-56 and the Rays at 92-59 are in a tight race atop the AL East with Tampa Bay 2 games back. However, should the gap tighten further, Baltimore owns the tiebreaker by virtue of winning the season series between the 2 teams 8-5. The AL East champion is likely to earn the number 1 seed in the AL, thus would not have to play in the best of 3 wildcard series and would instead head straight to a best-of-5 division series. Magic number for the East is 10. And there are various groups of Oriole players who have taken differing paths to this point. The former high draft picks, top prospects such as Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Grayson Rodriguez, the early rebuild holdovers, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Stantander, and the veteran additions of Gibson, McCann, Adam Frazier, and more. And each has been critical to Baltimore's consistency during the 2023 season. The O's, who haven't lost more than 4 straight games or been swept in 87 consecutive multi-game series, have a roster that has been meshed into an impressive team, one of the best in MLB this year. So who holds the postseason tiebreakers in 2023? And for that reason, the Orioles wanted to celebrate the first accomplishment of their lengthy list of goals. We could have clinched today and moved on, and things don't work out how you want to, and you don't get to do this once. I've seen it happen, said the 35-year-old Gibson, who signed a 1-year, $10 million deal to join Baltimore this past offseason. So we wanted to celebrate and give these guys who have been here a taste of this. It's sure been a long time coming. That's right. So at the end of the 2018 season, the Orioles underwent sweeping changes across the organization in an attempt to rebuild and replenish their depleted farm system. They hired Mike Elias as general manager and Hyde as manager, and Elias, a former Astros assistant GM, brought in Sig Mejidal and Eve Rosenbaum to work on his staff. From 2019 to 2021, Baltimore unsurprisingly struggled at the big league level, going 131 and 253 over that span, a 341 win percentage, and things began to turn around in 2022 when the team went 83 and 79, its first winning campaign since 2016. And stayed alive in the AL wildcard hunt until the final week of the regular season before falling 3 games short of a postseason berth. Outside of the organization, some were stunned by the Orioles' rapid ascent. We set out to do a reboot of the way we did things and knew that it might take a long time because baseball reboots do take a long time typically. Oftentimes they don't succeed and you have to start again, team chairman, CEO John Angelo said. I'm really happy for Mike and Brandon and Sig and all the entire team, the entire organization. The system they had, the philosophy paid off, and it paid off earlier than most people expected. Elias deserves a lot of credit. He and his front office have continually taken the right players in the draft and made the right moves to strengthen Baltimore's system, which led to its breakthrough 2023 campaign. But as Elias celebrated alongside his players and various employees of the club, he was quick to dish out the credit to others. There are people all over the organization. There are people that aren't here anymore, including a lot of players that helped get us to this point, Elias said. And former GM Dan Duque and his staff, some of the drafts that they had before I got here, there's no way we would do this in 5 years without that. And as recently as this past off season, they were external doubters, people who thought the Orioles didn't make enough big moves to take the next step. Mathematical systems expected them to instead take a step back, such as Fangraphs ZiPS, which pegged them for 80 wins. We were disrespected, honestly, going into this year, just from who we were, from where we were from projections. Smart people thinking they know what the records are going to be at the end of the year. Hyde said, I thought we were underappreciated. Everybody thought that what we were going to have a setback this year, and I wanted our players to be offended by that a little bit. Yep. Whether the Orioles used it as motivation or not, they came to spring training confident of what they could achieve. Those new to the club, such as Gibson and McCann, repeatedly praised the amount of talent they saw in the clubhouse. Baltimore went 19-9 over the first month of the season, seized the AL East lead in mid-July, and hasn't looked back amid its march to October. So that, folks, in a nutshell, congratulations to the Baltimore Orioles clinching the AL East division title and going on into the playoffs as the number 1 seed. You can't get any better than that, folks. You really can't. So let's go ahead and look at the scores. It was, of course, the Orioles beating the Rays, their nemesis, to keep them atop of the AL East division by 1.5 games. They do it again, beat them 5-4, and keep pressure on the Rays, who have to now perform as a team to try to get at least a wild card spot, which they have, which they got to hold on to right now. It was the Pirates over the Yankees, 3-2. Red Sox fall to the Blue Jays, 3-2, putting the Red Sox now in the cellar. Oh, boy. A tough one at that, folks, because between the Yankees and the Red Sox, who was actually going to get out of the cellar and stay out of there? Right now, the Yankees are out of that cellar pot. They're not on the bottom anymore. They actually went on a little bit of a streak, but they get stopped by the Pirates yesterday, and the Blue Jays keep track with the Rays and the Orioles to try to get anything going, but they're trying to fight for a playoff spot too, for a wild card, and they take that series 3-2 over the Red Sox. The Mets, they spoil another one for the Reds, but not before the Reds took 2 out of 3 on their series, putting the Mets at 69 and 80 this year, way out of contention. The Reds are trying to fight for that division title with the Brewers. They lose, though, 8-4. It was the Guardians over the Rangers, 9-2, putting a little bit of a damper on the Rangers' division lead in the West. You know what I mean? Playing that spoiler is very important to any team that's trying to just keep the top teams out of there. Marlins, they iced the Braves, and where was this about 2 weeks ago when they needed it, right? They put a damper on the Braves. Braves still hold the top spot, 96 and 53, but they lose to the Marlins last night, 16-2 in a pounding. It was the Astros over the Royals, 7-1. Houston still continuing to dominate that AL West over the Rangers. A lot of changes happened over the last week and a half. Twins beat the White Sox 4-0. It was the Nationals over the Brewers, 2-1. And the Cardinals beat the Phillies 6-5 in a slew of a game that really, the Giants need this game big time, and they pulled it out of like a rabbit getting pulled out of the hat. 11-10 beats the Rockies, keeping them 4 games from winning 60 total. So with that, they just having a rough year. They go by to get the loss and have to go on to the next series. It was the Tigers over the Angels, 5-3. Tigers trying to place a spoiler to anybody. They really took care of the Angels, which the Angels really aren't doing much anyway at 68 and 82. Athletics have officially lost 100 games, and the Padres just iced them with a 103rd loss already, 10-1. Yeah, the Royals also too have lost 100 games, but they're at 48 and 102. So right now, Athletics hold the worst record in baseball. Dodgers, they keep winning. Top the NL West right now, 6-1 over the Mariners, and the Mariners trying to play, trying to get into that the wild card spot in the AL West. It's very difficult right now, considering you've got Texas and Houston, just total domination. And the D-backs, they beat the Cubs, 6-2 is the final. The D-backs are trying to get into the playoffs with a wild card spot. Cubs, same thing with them. They're trying to get the division from the Brewers. So that's a look at the scores. Now let's look at the standings and give you all that final wrap up here on our program. Whoops, put the standings in. Okay, I don't have to tell you right now that Baltimore has the division. 93 and 56, 2-game winning streak. They start a series with the Houston Astros tonight in Houston. Tampa Bay has a playoff berth, 92 and 59. They have it, but in order to get the division, the magic number is 11. 11 is the magic number for Baltimore to get it. Okay. Tampa Bay is 2 games back at 92 and 59. They're on the 2-game losing streak. They start a series tomorrow versus the Angels in LA. Toronto, 83 and 67, 10.5 back in the division. 3 games to elimination of the division, but they're half a game up in the second wild wild card spot, as Tampa Bay has now 9 games up on the wild card spot for that all important second one behind the Baltimore Orioles. Okay. Yankees 76 and 74, 17 and a half games back, eliminated from the division, but still 6.5 back in the wild card. They could make a run, folks. They're not out of it completely. Still got life. 2 weeks left to go down to it, but they're fighting every tooth and nail. They start this important series with the Yankees in New York tomorrow. Boston 74 and 76, 19 and a half out. Eliminated from the division, but still 8.5 back. But they're on a 4-game losing streak, folks. They need some wins badly. They start a 3-game series with Texas tonight. Minnesota 79 and 71, top the AL Central Division. Starts a 3-game series at Cincinnati tonight. Cleveland fighting for every bit of it as they can. 72 and 78, 7 games back. The magic number for them to get eliminated is 6, but they got 10.5 back in the wild card, so they're really trying to fight tooth and nail for a wild card. Otherwise, they're going to get eliminated. All right. Detroit 70 and 79, 8.5 back in the division, 5 games for the elimination number, and 12 on the wild card. Yeah, this is a team that looked like they were going to be doing something, and then they just fell down and that was it. Not too shabby for somebody of that caliber, folks, but you just got to keep winning and keep going on. Tigers, yeah. We talk about them. Chicago White Sox 57 and 93, 22 games back. They're eliminated. 25.5 back. White Sox are going to play spoiler right now. They started a 3-game series in at Washington. Kansas City 48 and 102. 31 games back, eliminated officially from division from playoff competition. 34.5 games back in the wild card spot. They start a 3-game series with Cleveland. Now in the West, Houston 84 and 66, defending champions, start that series versus Baltimore tonight. Will Houston have what it takes to put a damper on Baltimore's chances of trying to clinch that division? We'll see, starting this very important 3-game series versus Baltimore. Texas, 82 and 67, 1.5 games back in the division, 12 games is for elimination. They have the second wild card spot right now. They're no games back. Second or third wild. I think they have the third wild card spot right now. And they start that series with Boston in Texas. Seattle, 81 and 68, 2.5 back, 11 games back for elimination, 1 game back in the wild card. Start a 3-game series with the Oakland Athletics. LA Angels, 68 and 82, 16 games back in the division, officially eliminated, 14.5 back in the wild card. Losers of 5, but they started that series with Tampa Bay. And then Oakland, 46 and 103. Well, there's my consolation prize to them is a buffet Chinese food, if anything. That would be really good. But the Angels, they have to go up against the series with the Tampa Bay Rays starting tomorrow. Okay. And Oakland and Seattle. So Oakland's really playing spoiler here to damper Seattle's chances of trying to get a wild card. Now we go to the National League, and officially the Braves have clinched the National League East at 96 and 53. Nothing's going to stop these boys, even with 3 straight losses right now. They start the series in Philadelphia tonight in Atlanta. Everything going for them. 5-5 on the last 10-game streak. That's nothing new. They could practically lose the next 25, and as the rate of every other team is going right now, they're looking like they just can't be stopped. You know what I mean? Philadelphia behind them, 81 and 68, 15 games back, officially eliminated from the division. 3.5 though, up on the wild card. They start that series with the Braves tonight. Miami 78-72, 18.5 back. They hold the third wild card spot. They're winners of 3. They start a series with the Mets tonight. Mets 69-80, 27 games back, 8.5 back in the wild card. Don't count the Mets out. I said before, you may be 8-9 games back in the wild card spot, but remember, folks, it ain't over until October 1st, which is the last day of the season. Okay, October. Last games of the season are that weekend. So, pay attention because the teams on the bottom may have to do some spoilers once again. Washington 66-84, 30.5 games back, 12 back in the wild card. They start a series with the White Sox. Milwaukee Brewers 84-65. Started in a 3-game series with the St. Louis Cardinals, but the Cubs looking in right now, 78-72, 6.5 back in the division. Magic number for them to get eliminated is 7. But they were losers of 5, so they're just not getting the hits. They start a 3-game series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Cincinnati 78-73, 7 games back, 6 back in the elimination column. Half a game back in the wild card spot for at least the third wild card spot, that is. They start a 3-game series with Minnesota tonight. Pittsburgh 70-80, 14.5 back, 8.5, 8 back in the wild card. They start up a series with Chicago tomorrow night. Cardinals go to the Brewers, and the Cardinals are at 66-83, 18 games back, 11.5 back in the wild card. Dodgers, they clinched their 4th NL West division title, 91-57. They gave it a run, those guys in San Francisco and Arizona, but like I said, the Dodgers just kept pulling away. Winners of 3 right now. They start a series with the Detroit Tigers in LA tonight. Arizona 79-72, 13.5 back. Eliminated. Everybody's eliminated as far as the division because the Dodgers clinched it. But Arizona has a half game up on the wild card spot right now. Really closing in. They start a 3-game series with the Giants tomorrow. San Francisco 76-74, 16 back. 2 back in the wild card going up against Arizona tomorrow night. San Diego 72-78, 20 games back. 6 back in the wild card. They start that series with the Colorado Rockies tonight. And Colorado 56-93, 35.5 back, 21.5 in the wild card. It's possible, but I'm going to say it's highly doubt it. That's overthinking stretch wise. But anyways, the biggest thing is right now the division looks fantastic. The standings are there, and while you know what I'm talking about when I say it's just one of those things that happens. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll start our show with a look at the 172nd birthday of the founding of the New York Times. All of that and much more when we come back right after this.
As Halloween approaches, you have to prepare yourself for what might happen.
More orange sprinkles.
It's a special time of year, and Dunkin' Donuts is dressing up their donuts for the occasion.
And here's the werewolf.
So come to Dunkin' Donuts and get into the spirit of Halloween.
We'd like some Halloween donuts, please.
Oh, of course.
How does Sam Breakstone know when his sour cream is ready?
Not thick enough!
Now?
Not thick enough!
Now?
Now!
Breakstone's all-natural sour cream is so thick and so rich now because Sam was so demanding then.
Put that down.
Now?
Now! Ah! Try my light choice. It's got 33% less fat than sour cream, but it's 100% delicious.
When you're rushing in a hurry. What's for dinner? Not to worry. When a pizza just won't cut it, more Chinese, you're sick of it. For a warm and hearty supper, grab some Chunky from the cupboard. It's not really such a big deal to prepare yourself a square meal. Chunks of beef and big potatoes. And of course, we've got tomatoes, peas, and vegetables galore. Chunky soup, need we say more? Campbell's Chunky. Soup that eats like a meal.
Happy Halloween! I'm Dumpy the Pumpkin, the fresh ice cream cake made daily at Carvel. And here's my good friend, Wiki the Witch.
Are you having a Halloween party? Go to your participating Carvel ice cream store and ask to see us, Dumpy the Pumpkin, and me, Wiki the Witch. Or if you want to send one of us to a friend,
please phone 800-327-GIFT and call the Cake Honors most major credit cards. Thank you.
If you suffer from an inflamed, itchy rash caused by eczema, psoriasis, or other skin irritations, you can get the relief medication formerly available only by doctor's prescription. It's the medicine in maximum strength Cortisone 10. Look, Cortisone 10 applied to this itchy rash gets under the itch for soothing relief and help in healing. See? The rash is gone. To relieve itchy rashes and skin irritations, use maximum strength Cortisone 10 with the medicine doctors recommend most. Available without prescription.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
look out!
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
does.
Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does. Genesis does.
Get Joe Montana free, Pat Riley free, Buster Douglas free, Super Monaco GP free, or Columns free.
What Nintendo don't?
Buy a 16-bit Genesis system between now and October 31st and...
Yeah.
Clean the inside too, mister?
Just the outside.
White Castle. What you crave. Got an extreme crave? Get 20 burgers and 4 orders of fries.
All right, welcome back to DMS 3000 News Live for episode 52 on this September 18th, 2023. I'm your host, Jason DeCanio, welcoming you back. It is now time for the ever-popular News of the Weird. That's right, folks. News of the Weird is here every Monday. Well, with the exception of last week, we had September 11th, so on a more somber occasion, we moved it to Tuesday. But we moved it back here today because it's a new week, and we're ready to see what the boys over at Andrews McMeel Syndication have for the week of the 15th of September. So, oh, man, come on. Okay, we're ready here. It's Mistaken Identity as the lead story. As dog walkers passed the Seascape Cafe in Chapel, St. Leonard's, England on September 6th, they were startled to see what they thought was a ritual mass murder inside. United Press International reported police were called to the scene, but it turns out that the people lying on their backs were just taking part in a yoga meditation exercise. The class's teacher, Millie Laws, said class members had dispersed before officers arrived and assured the community on her Facebook page that we are not part of any mad cult or crazy clubs. They were all participating in a beautiful, deep relaxation, and it could have never run the way any of our minds thought, or any of our minds that it could be taken this way. Namaste. Wow. 32-year-old Zach Swope Swope of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, had a worthy goal in mind when he set out to capture a Guinness World Record. He wanted to raise awareness for mental health issues. To that end, Regal Cinemas donated $7,777.77 to the American Federation for Suicide Prevention after Swoop saw 777 films in 365 days. United Press International reported. He started in July of 2022 with Minions: Rise of Gru and finished with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Swoop wisely bought a Regal Unlimited membership for $22 per month, which allowed him to see as many films as he could. He said he generally saw up to 3 movies every weekday after work and a few on the weekends, but he was not allowed to take bathroom breaks or have snacks or drinks during the films. What was his favorite? Across the Spider-Verse. Wow. Oh, my goodness. In Bresna, Montenegro, 7 individuals are competing for the resort village's coveted title of laziest citizen, Reuters reported, and all they have to do is lie down. Yes, the contest, which promises a prize of $1,070, is held every year. It started in 2012 to mock a popular stereotype of Montenegrins being lazy. Then in 2022, a record of 117 hours was set. But after 20-plus days and nearly 500 hours, 7 of the 2023 lazy competitors, which was down from the 21 who started, were still at it. Don't worry, each person gets 10 minutes every 8 hours to visit the restroom. Jeez. Last year's champion, 38-year-old Dubravka Aksik, said they all feel good. Excellent. There are no health problems. They are pampering us. All we have to do is remain lying down. Time goes by quickly, said 23-year-old Philippe Kenzevic, who was determined to take the prize. Wow. A Swiss Airlines flight on September 9th from Zurich to Bilbao, Spain, took off without one key element in place, the passenger's luggage. Yahoo News reported that although passengers waited for 2 hours in Spain for their luggage to arrive, it never did. Company spokesperson Kevin Ampelam explained there was a shortage of ground staff, and after waiting for more than an hour, they decided to take off anyway. The pilot apologized to passengers for the delay, but failed to mention the lack of luggage on board. We understand the situation is not favorable for the people involved, and of course we regret the inconvenience, Applebaum said. Or worse, our vacation is ruined, said passenger Karsten Redlick. Wow. Travelers aboard a Delta flight from Ghana to New York on September 8th made an unexpected 12-hour detour to remote Terceira Island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the New York Post reported, and the airline didn't have much sympathy for them. The plane experienced a mechanical issue with a backup oxygen system, a Delta spokesperson said. Nana Asante Smith, one of the passengers, said people on board were enclosed in a partition section because of visa regulations and had no access to food or water. Yeah. Finally, the airport provided sandwiches, juice boxes, and crackers. Flyers couldn't get any information from Delta, and one airport staffer told the group that they shouldn't start a revolution and should be grateful that their plane didn't crash into the sea. When a replacement plane arrived, the group's luggage was not transferred to the new aircraft, and some travelers waited for days for their items to be recovered. Wow. Researchers with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, exploring the Gulf of Alaska in early September, stumbled upon a golden orb on the ocean floor that they can't identify, Yahoo News reported. Scientists used a remotely operated vehicle to survey deep-water habitats. The object, which was about 4 inches in diameter and had a tear near its base, was perched on a rock 2 miles deep. And while we were able to collect the golden orb and bring it onto the ship, we still are not able to identify it beyond the fact that it is biological in origin. Oh, wow. Reza Bellucci just can't stop getting into trouble with the U.S. Coast Guard, NPR reported. The Iranian-born man from Florida was arrested on August 29th after officers tried for 3 days to convince him to abandon his plan, running across the Atlantic Ocean in a hamster wheel. Oh, yeah, we would. It was a big thing that happened over about a month ago. I think it was almost the same issue. Well, let's see. He wanted it fitted with buoys, with his final destination being London, England, 4,000 miles from his starting point. He tried similar stunts in 2014, 2016, and 2021, all of which resulted in USCG intervention, said Coast Guard Special Agent Michael Perez. In a short documentary made about Bellucci by Vice, he explained his motivation. If you drive a boat, nobody cares. Bubble, nobody did before. Make me crazy. They stop me every time. They save my life. I don't need it. Save my life. Wow. After the 2016 incident, the Coast Guard sank Bellucci's bubble, so he redesigned and built a new one. He faces charges of obstruction of boarding and violation of a captain of the port order. Wow. The North Wales police are warning residents about a new strategy being used by burglars, Sky News reported. Criminals are leaving Christmas gnomes in people's front gardens, then watching to see if the little figurines are moved. That's why, or that way, they can discern whether residents are away and the home is an easy target. We would advise residents to be vigilant, a spokesperson for the police said. Dodgy? Yes. Let's see. 51-year-old John McKee of Vincennes, Indiana, landed in the Knox County Jail on August 23rd after a state trooper observed him driving a Power Wheels Jeep around 9 p.m. on a city street. According to police, the toy car didn't have lights or reflectors, and McKee failed a field sobriety test, the smoking gun reported. He told the officer that he had a crystal meth and marijuana in his system. He was released on bond, and his fancy ride was collected by Troy's Towing, a trooper said. Smoking gun. Whoa. And let's see. Goodwill employees finally in Goodyear, Arizona, were startled on September 5th when they opened a donated box and found a human skull inside. The Arizona Republic reported. The skull still had some of the teeth attached and featured a false eye set in the left eye socket. Goodyear police spokesperson Lisa Berry said they believed it to be historic and to have no forensic significance, meaning there appears to be no associated crime. The Goodwill store would not comment on whether the skill will be added to the store's shelves or how it would be priced. Arizona Republic. And send your weird news to, if you have a problem with it, send your news, weirdest items with subject line weird news to weird news tips at amuniversal.com. And of course, we thank all of those at uexpress.com and Andrews McNeil Syndication for News of the Weird. And there you have it, folks. We'll see it next week. We'll read it next week and get on with it. All right. Now, let's look at real quick here, because we've got some segments. We've got 15 minutes segments here. What day is today? Well, today, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is National Cheeseburger Day as well. So let's see what else is going on today in the nation. Yes, the National Cheeseburger Day. This is fantastic, friends. Yay. Let's delve in and have a little bite. You have another 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 bite. Yeah. That would be interesting. Okay. Come on. Okay. Have Faith America National Cheeseburger Day falls on September 18th. And that means there's a free or at least discounted cheeseburger waiting for you somewhere in this great nation. Prepare to enjoy an American food icon, a cheeseburger oozing warm, cheesy deliciousness on top of a moist, juicy patty or two. And no matter how refined your palate might be, a good old-fashioned cheeseburger seems to satisfy, especially on September 18th. Here you'll find money-saving deals plus a hand-curated list of chefs, food writers, and bloggers contributing their most creative National Cheeseburger Day recipe. And for ideas, you can contact and Think Donuts. Yeah. So when we have Lionel Sternberger to thank for his invention of gastronomic genius, Sternberger, well, he certainly had the perfect name for the job. Anyway, Lionel was 16 years old in 1926, flipping burgers inside his dad's sandwich shop, The Right Spot, in Pasadena, California. But here's where things get interesting. Consistent with most how it got started stories, there are two versions. In one, Lionel, out of curiosity, added a piece of American cheese onto a hamburger frying on the griddle. In version 2, a homeless passerby saw Lionel working those burgers and suggested adding cheese. Either way, the rest is a mouth-watering, delicious history. And whether you grill your own burgers today or you're basically, or caravan with your crew to everybody's favorite burger joint, go hog wild crazy as many toasted, dripping good cheeseburgers as your tummy can hold. So thanks, Lionel. We wouldn't be eating cheeseburgers without you. One of the great things about National Cheeseburger Day is that there are always plenty of deals knocking around. We've searched the web so you don't have to. So here are some of the best deals. Applebee's is offering a complete burger bundle for $8.99, and you can choose from any one of their handcrafted burgers and get a fries and soft drink included. All you have to do is select the burger bundle option from the menu this Friday, so participation may vary from location to location. Yes, okay. Yeah. And Burger King, in your cheeseburger could be, I'm sorry. Where am I looking here? Okay, Burger King could be as little as $3 at Burger King. Options include a $3 double cheeseburger meal, a double cheeseburger, fries, and a drink, or a $3 snack box, cheeseburger, fries, nuggets, and a drink. Farmer Boys, never heard of them. But this is the place to be between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., as that's when you'll be able to enjoy their big cheese for just $2. The big cheese comes stacked with a quarter pound of beef, American cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, sliced onions, dill pickles, and Thousand Island dressing on a sesame seed bun. Almost sounds like a Big Mac. Slater's 50-50 just made sure that your cheeseburger got even cheesier. On today's date, visitors who order the best damn bacon cheeseburger will get a free upgrade of a Juicy Lucy patty when using the catchphrase Juicy Lucy as you order. In Old Charlie's, between now and Friday, you can dine in at Old Charlie's and get a burger and brew for $10. If you don't fancy a beer, then you can choose a soft drink instead. September 18th, Muya in locations will be offering a free cheeseburger to all rewards. App members purchase fries and a drink, and you'll get to build your own cheeseburger. Smash Burger, and if you live near a Smash Burger, then get yourself down there on September 18th, as they'll be offering their classic Smash Double Burger for only $5. That sounds like a good deal to us. So we reached out to chefs and food writers across the country to get some fun alternative takes on this American classic. And here's what we found. Louisiana Purchase, San Diego. Finally, someone has injected donuts into the cheeseburger world. If you're truly looking to indulge on this date, check out Chef Quentin Q. Austin's monster of a burger. It's a 6-ounce patty seasoned with Cajun spice, sandwiched between the aforementioned glazed donut. Hello. Toppings include bacon strips, a slice of gooey American cheese, and several deep-fried onion rings. This epic burger rests on a bed of house-made potato and duck hash. Can we get a dozen, please? Oh, wow. Cheeseburgers are one of my very favorite foods to order at a restaurant or cook on the grill, says food writer Jessica Fisher. They are the epitome of summertime and cooking out of doors. My favorite combines tender grilled onions with gooey melted cheese. That's how I order it. That's how I get home. That's right. Yes. The Mac Attack Burger. Union Burger Bar, Southampton, New York. Owner Ian Duke. Chef Scott Camp, and I love burgers. I mean, love burgers. With the closure of a few local restaurants, we saw a glaring need not only for a good burger joint, but a place where people could really eat and drink what they love. That's what the place is all about. Great burgers, hand-cut fries, fried pickles, giant pretzels with beer cheese sauce, decadent milkshakes, and a great bourbon selection. Does Be Your Burger, the Wayback Burgers. Wayback Burgers' new Das Burger is made of an all-beef burger patty with sweet Bavarian mustard, beer cheese, and crisp French onions. Ugh. The whole delicious concoction is served on a gourmet, fluffy pretzel bun and topped with a salted pretzel bite. Wow. So there's some great places here that will give you a pretty good deal on a burger. So enjoy your National Cheeseburger Day today, folks. Even McDonald's may even get you some free cheeseburgers today. So if you've never participated on this day, now is your chance to do that. All right, so take a look at that. And when we come back, we're going to be getting into our events tonight with the 172nd birthday of the founding of the New York Times. We'll be right back right after this.
Fire!
It's not easy getting so much rich chocolate into a Three Musketeers bar. Fortunately, it's a lot easier to get all that incredible tasting chocolate out of it.
Come on along, I'll take you to the lullaby of Broadway. The hickory and ballyhoo.
The lullaby of Broadway.
And in the center of it all
is the Milford Plaza.
Stay at the Milford Plaza Hotel with cocktail dinner and breakfast for $49.50 per person. Discover why we are the lullaby of Broadway.
The Milford Plaza is the lullaby of all Broadway.
MTA interviews, tercer comics, take one.
Take the train.
Why have over 1 million people taken the JFK Express?
Because it's faster than taking a taxi. Because it's very fast, clean, and safe.
And that's the only way to fly.
It's safe.
Oh, I work for United Airlines, and it's quicker than the bus.
So we're taking the train to the plane to save money.
To spend in Paris.
Take the train to the plane.
Take the train to the plane.
The JFK Express, only $4, including shuttle bus. Call 858-7272.
Train to the plane.
I'm Murray Linder. On bagels, I'm an expert. People I'll never understand. I tell them a delicious Linder's bagel has more complex carbohydrates than a lot of cereals people call healthy. 20% more. Well, who wouldn't take a toasty, chewy Linder's bagel over what's in a cereal bowl? But some people still think bowl healthy. Look, if you still think good stuff has to come in a bowl, here you go. Linder's Bagels. Who knew they were this good?
new responsibilities and new needs for life and health insurance protection. Why not drop in on your MetLife representative to help you figure out what's right for you and your family? Get Met. It pays.
Benny, the chicken. Throw him the chicken! The chicken, Benny! Please, Benny! The chicken! Throw him the chicken!
But it's Roy Rogers' chicken.
It's chicken month at Roy's. And now get a 2-piece dinner, medium fries, a 15-ounce drink, just $2.99.
I hate machines. Sorry, Rosie.
Why don't we go to the new Sprint store at Radio Shack, George? They have Sprint's easy-to-use products.
And the know-how of Radio Shack.
They even showed Astro how to use his mobile phone.
They could even help you, Mr. J.
Astro has a mobile phone? Hello, Rhonda.
The new Sprint store at Radio Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Hello, I'm Joe DeCandia, the owner of Lenny's Columbine Restaurant. I would like to welcome you to Lenny's. We serve you the finest Italian seafood like calamari, baked clams, lobster tail served with shrimps, mussels, and linguine. Our delicious pasta dishes are a mouth-watering treat, and an Italian specialty are unforgettable. Visit one of Lenny's nearest you and enjoy a glass of wine in the house.
Welcome back to DMS 3000 News Live. It's episode 52 on this Monday, September 18, 2023. Hope you're having a fantastic Monday morning, and we are ready to continue on with our look at our events for today. 172nd birthday of the founding of the New York Times newspaper. Yes, the daily newspaper based in New York City with a worldwide readership reported in 2022 to compromise 740,000 paid print subscribers and 8.6 million paid digital subscribers. Founded in 1851 as the New York Daily Times, it is published by the New York Times Company. The Times has won 132 Pulitzer Prizes, the most of any newspaper, and has long been regarded as a national newspaper of record. For print, it is ranked 17th in the world by circulation and 3rd in the United States. The newspaper is headquartered at the New York Times building near Times Square, Manhattan. The New York Times Company, which is publicly traded, has been governed by the Sulzberger family since 1896 through a dual-class shared structure. A.G. Sulzberger, the paper's publisher and the company's chairman, is the 5th generation of the family to head the paper. And since the mid-70s, the New York Times has expanded its layout and organization, adding special weekly sections on various topics, supplementing the regular news, editorials, sports, and features. The institution's emphasis remains on global and U.S. hard news coverage, and since 2008, the Times has been organized into the following sections: news, editorials, and opinions, columns, op-ed, New York Metropolitan, business, arts, science, styles, home travel, and other features. And on Sundays, the Times is supplemented by the Sunday Review, formerly the Weekend Review, the New York Times Book Review, the New York Times Magazine, and T, the New York Times Style Magazine. So, the New York Times, founded as the New York Daily Times on September 18th, 1851, now celebrating 172 years, founded by journalist and politician Henry Jarvis Raymond and former banker George Jones. The Times was initially published by Raymond Jones and Company. Early investors in the company included Edwin B. Morgan, Christopher Morgan, and Edward B. Wesley. Sold for a penny, that's the equivalent to 35 cents in 2022, the inaugural edition attempted to address various speculations on its purpose and positions that preceded its release. We shall be conservative in all cases where we think conservatism is essential to the public good, and we shall be radical in everything which may seem to us to require radical treatment and radical reform. We do not believe that everything in society is either exactly right or exactly wrong. What is good, we desire to preserve and improve. What is evil, to exterminate or reform. In 1852, the newspaper started a Western division, the Times of California, which arrived whenever a mail boat from New York docked in California. The effort failed once local California newspapers came into prominence. September 14th, 1857, the newspaper officially shortened its name to the New York Times. The hyphen in the city name was dropped on December 1st of 1896. Then on April 21st of 1861, the New York Times began publishing a Sunday edition to offer daily coverage of the Civil War. The main office of the New York Times was attacked during the New York City draft riots. The riots, sparked by the institution of a draft for the Union Army, began on July 13th of 1863. On Newspaper Row, across from City Hall, co-founder Henry Raymond stopped the rioters with Gatling guns, early machine guns, one of which he welded himself, and the mob diverted, instead attacking the headquarters of abolitionist publisher Horace Greeley's New York Tribune until being forced to flee by the Brooklyn City Police, who had crossed the East River to help the Manhattan authorities. In 1869, Henry Raymond died, and George Jones took over as publisher. The newspaper's influence grew in 1870 and in 71 when it published a series of exposés on William Tweed, leader of the city's Democratic Party, popularly known as Tammany Hall, from its early 19th century meeting headquarters that led to the end of the Tweed Ring's domination of New York's City Hall. Tweed had offered the New York Times $5 million, that's equivalent to about $122 million in 2022, to not publish the story. In the 1880s, the New York Times gradually transitioned from supporting Republican Party candidates in its editorials to becoming more politically independent and analytical. In 1884, the paper supported Democrat Grover Cleveland, former mayor of Buffalo and governor of New York, in his first presidential campaign. And while this move cost the New York Times a portion of its readership among its more Republican readers, revenue declined from about $188,000 to $56,000 from 1883 to 1884. The paper eventually regained most of its lost ground within a few years. After George Jones died in 1891, Charles Ransom Miller and other New York Times editors raised $1 million, which is the equivalent to about $33 million in 2022, to buy the Times, printing it under the New York Times Publishing Company. The newspaper found itself in a financial crisis by the Panic of 1893, but by 1896, the newspaper had a circulation of less than 9,000 and was losing $1,000 a day. That year, Adolph Oaks, OCHS, the publisher of the Chattanooga Times, gained a controlling interest in the company for $75,000. Shortly after assuming control of the paper, Oaks coined the paper's slogan, "All the news that's fit to print." This slogan has endured, appearing in the paper since September of 1896, and has been printed in a box in the upper left-hand corner of the front page since early 1897. The slogan was seen as a jab at competing publications such as Joseph Pulitzer's New York World and William Randolph Hearst's New York Journal, which were known for a lurid, sensationalist, and often inaccurate reporting of facts and opinions, described by the end of the century as yellow journalism. Under Ock's guidance, aided by Carl Van Anda, the New York Times achieved international scope, circulation, and reputation. Sunday circulation went from under 9,000 in 1896 to 780,000 in 1934. Van Anda, or Venada, Van Anda, wow, also created the newspaper's photo library, now colloquially referred to as the morgue. 1904, during the Russo-Japanese War, the New York Times, along with the Times, received the first on-the-spot wireless telegraph transmission from a naval battle. A report of the destruction of the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet at the Battle of Port Arthur from the press boat Hayman. Now, in 1910, the first air delivery of the New York Times to Philadelphia began. 1919, the New York Times' first transatlantic delivery to London occurred by a dirigible balloon. Wow. And in 1920, during the 1920 Republican National Convention, at 4 a.m., Airplane Edition was sent to Chicago by plane so it could be in the hands of convention delegates by evening. In 1920, Walter Lippmann and Charles Murs published a test of the news about the Times coverage of the Russian Revolution. They concluded that its news stories were not based on facts, but were determined by the hopes of the men who made up the news organizations. The newspaper referred to events that had not taken place, atrocities that did not exist, and reported no fewer than 91 times that the Bolshevik regime was on the verge of collapse. And it goes on more and more. You have expansions, the New York Times versus Sullivan, the Pentagon Papers, going into the late 70s to the 90s, the digital era, and on, all the way to where we are today. What we've learned over the course of this 172nd birthday is the New York Times continues to be the most dominant newspaper in the United States and the world, for that matter. When you're around that long, folks, you pretty much are a staple amongst your readers. One thing, though, the Times is an expensive paper. I know, because back when the days when I was a kid growing up, the New York Times Sunday edition was $5 for the whole paper. The weekday edition or the daily, rest of the time was only $1.50. But that Sunday paper, $5. And it looked like a folded suitcase where each part of the paper was a fold out. Okay. And it looks like that today if you look at some editions of the Times. Now, most newspapers, as you know today, are on digital websites where you pay a subscription for that particular newspaper. So if you want your daily news or your New York Times every day, you don't have to have it delivered anymore, and you don't have to get it wet by the paper boy or pooped on by the dog. You don't have to worry about that because you have it right now on your computer. That's right, folks. You can get the New York Times on your computer for substantial discounts. They always have discounts, and they always charge pretty much an arm and a leg for it. So one way or another, they're going to get you. It's up to you to decide how you want it. Do you want it the old-fashioned way with the poop stains from a doggy dog and water from the rain? Or do you want to be have it a clean copy and digitized and read it on your own, following all of what's on the computer, making sure that you don't get a virus attached to something else? However you read the New York Times, folks, get your information, draw your conclusions, and take it from there. Now, let's look at the commentary on climate change. Oh, boy. Folks, at the beginning of this program, we talked about the headlines with the climate change and everything and how everybody is just making a mountain out of a molehill. And I must say, I live in Florida, and you want to talk about climate, we can talk about it all day. It's hot. It's humid. There's hurricanes here, and there is, there's factors around here that pretty much just make climate change a thing on everybody's mind. 4 seasons, for instance, we have to have that balance, but without the changes in climate situations, things won't take place. Floods, global warming, all those things are factors that are beyond our control. We can do everything we can to recycle, save the planet. By the time we even get to that point, how many of us will actually be around to actually do something about it? Maybe not a lot of us. For future generations, this is where you guys come in. You can do one of two things. You can agree with the radical left and take on the climate change and be forced to think their way, or you can think of different approaches and debate them honestly and credibly with information that doesn't destroy their theory, but at the same time makes them aware. But see, here's the thing. They don't care about your opinion. They don't care that you have a different way of looking at things. They don't care at all. What they want to do is manipulate your brain into thinking that this is the only way to solve their little scrawny little problem. And folks, it ain't the only way. So let's look at this. Assigning historic responsibility for extreme weather events. This was published on November 2nd of 2017 by Frederick E. L. Otto, Ranghal B. Secchi, Jan S. Vogelswet, Terj Bernstein, and Miles R. Allen. This was from nature.com in the articles, The Natural Climate Change. Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. I guess we're not going to have that because... Oh, really? Okay, so you want me to go that way. All right. Let's look at another article on climate change. Commentary on climate change. Let's see what we have here. So sometimes it forces you to do this. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is going to research this for a minute, and when we come back, we're going to take a break. I'm going to find an article where we can talk about climate change right after the break.
Here comes the one, the delicious one. Heinz is the big rich one. There's only one ketchup with this flavor pouring on. So thick, so rich, so second to none.
Only one ketchup stands for this kind of thickness with this kind of taste. Heinz.
Heinz is the big rich one.
Ketchup lovers, now try Heinz in the 64-ounce plastic bottle.
Okay, Jonathan, we're sending you back in time.
Before television, radio, even before soft drinks. Careful. Anything you do could change history.
Mum's the word.
Activate time travel mode to the year 1885.
He's there.
Hey, where's my Pepsi?
Oh, no. He took it.
Relax, Smith. What could 12 ounces of Pepsi possibly change?
Yeah, what could happen?
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
Do you wanna dance? Hold my hand.
Now there's a car that just asks to be driven.
You're my love man. Oh, baby.
Mercury is bringing a sophisticated new shape to the American road. Introducing Sable. Mercury, the shape you want to be in.
Victoria.
But they finally found a substitute for the sweet roll.
Nutri-Grain's new almond raisins.
What is it, nuts and twigs?
Try almond raisins and these great new flakes made with brown rice.
But there's no sugar added. Irv, you're gonna love the taste, even though it's healthy. Hey, don't you have a story to write? How's this? Man eats healthy food and lives.
The amazing taste of Nutri-Grain's new almond raisin. It's news.
It's fun getting to the bottom of one. It's fun getting to the bottom of one. White Mountain Cooler. Keeping it light. Cooler. Crisp and refreshing. It's got the taste that's always right. It's
original, and new orange.
It's time. Time for a credit card that gives you a better deal.
The Discover Card!
With the new Discover card, you don't have to pay an annual fee. In fact, we pay you with money back on everything you buy. Money you can apply against your balance. From a member of Sears Financial Network. Look for more information in the mail or in national magazines.
All right, welcome back to DMS News Live 3000 on this episode 52, September 18th, 2023. I'm looking at commentaries on climate change, and boy, oh boy, I'm just getting a lot of blocks and ad blocks, and subscribe to this in order to try to read a specific article, and I can't even read it. Wow. Which really tells me that a lot of times these websites just don't want you to read. Okay. All right. Let's at least go. Let's see if the New York Times has something of this, since we've talked about the history of the New York Times. Come on. I don't want to sign in. Okay. All right. This is by NewYorkTimes.com. The article, Climate Change, Global Warming. This is by Julia Rosen on April 19th of 2021. Ms. Rosen is a journalist with a PhD in geology. Her research involved studying ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica to understand past climate changes. The science of climate change is more solid and widely agreed upon than you might think. But the scope of the topic, as well as rampant disinformation, can make it hard to separate fact from fiction. Here, we've done our best to present you with not only the most accurate scientific information, but also an explanation of how we know it. So, question: how do we know climate change is really happening? Well, climate change is often cast as a prediction made by complicated computer models. But the scientific basis for climate change is much broader, and models are actually only one part of it, and for what it's worth, they're surprisingly accurate. For more than a century, scientists have understood the basic physics behind why greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide cause warming. These gases make up just a small fraction of the atmosphere, but exert outsized control of the Earth's climate by trapping some of the planet's heat before it escapes into space. This greenhouse effect is important, and it's why a planet so far from the sun has liquid water and life. However, during the Industrial Revolution, people started burning coal and other fossil fuels to power factories, smelters, and steam engines, which added more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Ever since, human activities have been heating the planet. And we know this is true thanks to an overwhelming body of evidence that begins with temperature measurements taken at weather stations and on ships starting in the mid-1800s. Later, scientists began tracking surface temperatures with satellites and looking for clues about climate change in geologic records. Together, these data all tell the same story. The Earth is getting hotter. Average global temperatures have increased by 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1.2 degrees Celsius, since 1880, with the greatest changes happening in the late 20th century. Land areas have warmed more than the sea surface, and the Arctic has warmed the most, by more than 4 degrees Fahrenheit, just since the 1960s. Temperature extremes have also shifted. In the United States, daily record highs now outnumber record lows 2-1. This warming is unprecedented in recent geologic history. A famous illustration, first published in 1998 and often called the hockey stick graph, shows how temperatures remained fairly flat for centuries, the shaft of the stick before turning sharply upward, or the blade. And it's based on data from tree rings, ice cores, and other natural indicators. And the basic picture, which has withstood decades of scrutiny from climate scientists and contrarians alike, shows that Earth is hotter today than it's been in at least 1,000 years, and probably much longer. In fact, surface temperatures actually mask the true scale of climate change because the ocean has absorbed 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases. Measurements collected over the last 6 decades by oceanographic expeditions and networks of floating instruments show that every layer of the ocean is warming up. And according to one study, the ocean has absorbed as much heat between 97 and 2015 as it did in the previous 130 years. We also know that climate change is happening because we see the effects everywhere. Ice sheets and glaciers are shrinking while sea levels are rising. Arctic sea ice is disappearing. In the spring, snow melts sooner and plants flower earlier. Animals are moving to higher elevations and latitudes to find cooler conditions. And droughts, floods, and wildfires have all gotten more extreme. Models predicted many of these changes, but observations show they are now coming to pass. So how much agreement is there among scientists about climate change? Well, there's no denying that scientists love a good old-fashioned argument, but when it comes to climate change, there is virtually no debate. Numerous studies have found that more than 90% of scientists who study Earth's climate agree that the planet is warming and that humans are the primary cause. Most major scientific bodies, from NASA to the World Meteorological Organization, endorse this view. That's an astounding level of consensus given the contrarian, competitive nature of the scientific enterprise, where questions like what killed the dinosaurs remain bitterly contested. Scientific agreement about climate change started to emerge in the late 80s when the influence of human-caused warming began to rise above natural climate variability. And by 1991, 2/3 of the Earth and atmospheric scientists surveyed for an early consensus study said that they accepted the idea of anthropogenic global warming. And by 1995, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a famously conservative body that periodically takes stock out of the state of scientific knowledge, concluded that the balance of evidence suggests that there is a discernible human influence on global climate. Currently, more than 97% of publishing climate scientists agree on the existence and cause of climate change, as does nearly 60% of the general population of the United States. So where did we get the idea that there's still debate about climate change? Well, a lot of it came from coordinated messaging campaigns by companies and politicians that opposed climate action. Many pushed the narrative that scientists still hadn't made up their minds about climate change, even though that was misleading. Frank Luntz, a Republican consultant, explained the rationale in an infamous 2002 memo to conservative lawmakers. Should the public come to believe that the scientific issues are settled, their views about global warming will change accordingly, he wrote. Questioning consensus remains a common talking point today, and the 97% figure has become something of a lightning rod. To bolster the falsehood of the lingering scientific doubt, some people have pointed to things like the Global Warming Petition Project, which urged the United States government to reject the Kyoto Protocol of 1997, an early international climate agreement. The petition book proclaimed that climate change wasn't happening, and even if it were, it wouldn't be bad for humanity. And so since 1998, more than 30,000 people with science degrees have signed it. However, nearly 90% of them studied something other than Earth, atmospheric, or environmental science, and the signatories included just 39 climatologists. Most were engineers, doctors, and others whose training had little to do with the physics of the climate system. A few well-known researchers remained opposed to the scientific consensus. Some, like Willie Soon, a researcher affiliated with the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, have ties to the fossil fuel industry. Others do not, but their assertions have not held up under the weight of evidence. At least one prominent skeptic, the physicist Richard Mueller, changed his mind after reassessing historical temperature data as part of the Berkeley Earth Project. His team's findings essentially confirmed the results he had set out to investigate, and he came away firmly convinced that human activities were warming the planet. Call me a converted skeptic, he wrote in an op-ed for the Times in 2012. Mr. Luntz, the Republican pollster, has also reversed his position on climate change and now advises politicians on how to motivate climate action. A final note on uncertainty. Denialists often use it as evidence that climate science isn't settled. However, in science, uncertainty doesn't imply a lack of knowledge. Rather, it's a measure of how well something is known. In the case of climate change, scientists have found a range of possible future changes in temperature, precipitation, and other important variables, which will depend largely on how quickly we reduce emissions, but uncertainty does not undermine their confidence that climate change is real and that people are causing it. That's a look on climate change and all of its interesting situations. My editorial coming up at the end of the program in 15 minutes. Next up, we have a commentary on sports nutrition, a historical perspective. This should be fun. We're going to be looking at how everybody back in the day used to use sports nutrition for training purposes and how far we've come from that. This is by Brian Andotti. Was published on 10/28 of 2018 from web.colby.edu. In our society today, individuals are generally responsible for their own health. Thus, food intake, among other things, is now a carefully monitored and well thought out process. Likewise, the fascination over sports today is bigger than it has ever been. Sports athletes not only have to cater to their health and well-being, but also strive to improve their game performance. The competitive nature of sports tends to push athletes to the extremes regarding their bodies. Athletes are tasked to carefully regulate and balance their meals to first avoid burnout due to the intense physicality of the games, and second, to stay on top of their games while maximizing their body's capabilities. The link between food and sports is as important as any other field, such as food and pathology or food and infant physiology. Sport nutrition or exercise nutrition is termed as the application of nutrition principles for the purpose of improving training, recovering, and performance. I contend that despite rigorous practice and dedication without proper nutrition, an athlete will be unable to maintain high levels of performance while playing. And although the academic field of sports nutrition officially began close to 3 decades ago, the practice of monitoring athletes' food intake dates to as early as the history of competitive sports itself. Athletes have always been under the watchful eyes of either their coaches, parents, or colleagues on what to and what to not eat. Such information, advice, however, does not stem from the individuals themselves, but from medical research results. Sports nutrition is said to have begun in scientific labs. In her introduction chapter to her book, The Fundamentals of Sports and Nutrition, Marie Dunford anecdotes the story of the 1904 Olympic marathon gold medalist Thomas Hicks, who ran the marathon in extreme heat, weather conditions. Along the entire course of the marathon, there were only 2 water stations, which did not serve as sufficient considering the intensity of the race. Hicks therefore refueled during the race by eating eggs and sipping on brandy. Despite his win, he was in terrible condition and in need of medical attention. Because of the rising desire for competitive advantage through careful food intake, scientists, some even sportsmen and fans themselves, were tasked to uncover the biological benefits in foods to aid sports. The Thomas Hicks occurrence had far-reaching effects on the sports and medical community in the early 20th century. Consequently, demanding efforts were directed to laboratory to avoid such happenings in sports again. Dunford notes that in the 1930s, Swedish scientists embarked on carbohydrate and fat metabolism research, and this study gave way to the study of glucose and glycogen. During these early periods, the initial priority of such research was to increase athletes' energy and to understand how muscles stores energy in form of glycogen. Claudia Rydell describes that in 1924, the first studies to unveil the role of carbohydrates were conducted and showed that there was an association between low blood glucose and the symptoms of fatigue and confusion. Rydell furthers that glycogen storage was found to be a limiting factor to performance. Henceforth, carbohydrates were directly associated to energy. On the other hand, several studies were done to discover their role of proteins to improve athletic performance. In the 40s, proteins were found to increase muscle size. The more muscle an athlete had, the more glycogen they would be able to store, hence offering that competitive advantage not only in form of energy, but also endurance. Following this discovery, the demand for protein in the sports industry skyrocketed. This led to the birth of the protein supplement industry, example, protein shakes and bars, which has today grown into $1 million industry. Further, vitamin research was also underway in the same period. Vitamin studies at the time were aimed at combating diseases. Sports nutrients researchers, however, stressed on the importance of macronutrients, which could be sourced from vitamins too. Multivitamin research especially gave emphasis to amino acids and their effects on the muscles. Creatine was later discovered to convert adenosine diphosphate, therefore re-energizing muscle tissues. This discovery served as a revolutionary milestone in sports nutrition, and a combination of protein, amino acids, and creatine was described to be the ideal to not only increase muscle size, but also optimize its capabilities. The field of sports nutrition is evolving, and I have explored some of the key historical perspectives in the discipline. So much has changed since the early and mid-20th century regarding the development of this field. Majority of discoveries made were well received and adequately utilized among sports communities. Some of the findings, however, were altered for the wrong purpose and gave rise to the increased use of steroids and performance-enhancing substances. The rise of technology has also had tremendous impacts on the development of sports nutrition, developments that I will explore in the next post. Interesting. Wonderful. And there you have it, friends. Sports nutrition, a historical perspective. We'll be right back.
As Halloween approaches, you have to prepare yourself for what might happen.
More orange sprinkles.
It's a special time of year, and Dunkin' Donuts is dressing up their donuts for the occasion.
And here's the werewolf.
So come to Dunkin' Donuts and get into the spirit of Halloween.
We'd like some Halloween donuts, please.
Oh, of course.
How does Sam Breakstone know when his sour cream is ready?
Not thick enough!
Now?
Not thick enough!
Now?
Now!
Breakstone's all-natural sour cream is so thick and so rich now because Sam was so demanding then.
Put that down.
Now?
Now! Ah!
Try my light choice. It's got 33% less fat than sour cream, but it's 100% delicious.
When you're rushing in a hurry, what's for dinner? Not to worry. When a pizza just won't cut it, more Chinese, you're sick of it. For a warm and hearty supper, grab some chunky from the cupboard. It's not really such a big deal to prepare yourself a square meal. Chunks of beef and big potatoes. And of course, we've got tomatoes, peas and vegetables galore. Chunky soup, need we say more? Campbell's Chunky. Soup that eats like a meal.
Happy Halloween! I'm Dumpy the Pumpkin, the fresh ice cream cake made daily at Carvel. And here's my good friend, Ricky the Witch.
Are you having a Halloween party? Goody! to your participating Carvel ice cream store and ask to see us, Dumpy the Pumpkin and me, Wiki the Witch. Or if you want to send one of us to a friend...
Please phone 800-327-GIFT and call the Cake Honors most major credit cards. Thank you.
If you suffer from an inflamed, itchy rash caused by eczema, psoriasis, or other skin irritations, you can get the relief medication formerly available only by doctor's prescription. It's the medicine in maximum strength cortisone 10. Look, cortisone 10 applied to this itchy rash gets under the itch for soothing relief and help in healing. See? The rash is gone. To relieve itchy rashes and skin irritations, use maximum strength cortisone 10 with the medicine doctors recommend most. Available without prescription.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
Look out! Genesis does.
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis does.
Get Joe Montana free, Pat Riley free, Buster Douglas free, Super Monaco GP free, or Collins free. What Nintendo don't? Buy a 16-bit Genesis system between now and October 31st and... Yeah.
Clean the inside too, mister?
Just the outside.
White Castle. What you crave. Got an extreme crave? Get 20 burgers and 4 orders of fries.
Welcome back to DMS 3000 News Live. Episode 52 is coming to the end of this Monday here today on September 18, 2023. Hope you had a fun time with us here, learning a lot about sports nutrition, commentaries on climate change, and the 172nd birthday of the New York Times. Tomorrow on episode 53, we're going to look at 2 shows that premiered 40 years ago on television. One of them being Press Your Luck. The other was the syndicated Wheel of Fortune, which is now in its 41st year on new shows this week, I think. So we'll be looking at that. Those 2 shows. I think there also 2. We all have something else coming up. Let me see. Scrolling it down here. The Love Connection. Yes. So we're going to be looking at a lot. We'll be looking at the Love Connection. Pac-Man, the TV series, came out also. Press Your Luck, Wheel of Fortune. Yeah. It's going to be a great show with a lot of TV premieres coming up. So 4 shows in the making means to have a pretty good, a pretty good day tomorrow. So check us then at 8 o'clock for the 53rd episode of DMS 3000 News Live. Well, on this editorial, with my remaining 15 minutes left, I have some announcements and also some things I want to kind of get off my chest. First off, next week I will not be here to host. I have to switch my days of working for 1 week because I have to bring my car in for service on Thursday morning. So I'll be door dashing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then probably taking Thursday and Friday off, and then door dashing on Saturday and Sunday. So because of the schedule that I have to switch and everything to bring my car in, and I won't have time, I might be here Friday. So if I am, you'll have me at least one day on that Friday. Okay, we'll kind of shoot for next Friday for at least one program next week. I have not finalized that with David St. Dennis, but he could bring in some other people too. And speaking of which, we're still looking for a host to host this show to replace Brandon Martin, who I hear is doing fantastic with his schooling. Haven't talked to him in months, maybe weeks, since the end of August. Basically, I have not spoken to him since Super Password basically went off on hiatus. Season 4, I think, season 3 of Super Password should be coming back soon. Whenever he decides to do that, I'll be ready for it. Other things to kind of let you know of: we are 3 weeks now into the fall schedule at the David 3000 Network. Been looking over the views of a lot of the shows, and I must say, fantastic views on everything. We have a great lineup of shows, of course, today on this day. Tic Tac Dough is premiering with me. That we did some episodes. We're still recording those episodes to come into, but we're premiering the episodes of 5 weeks ago from what we recorded to premiere today, because today was the official day of the syndicated version of Tic Tac Dough back in 1978. It premiered on this date back some 45 years ago. And this is the 45th anniversary of the syndicated Tic Tac Dough with Wink Martindale. So in this case, it's another editorial there. Plus, we have Snowman in the Morning with Brian Snow and Cole Johnson coming up in about 12 minutes. I hope that they're going to have us on tomorrow to talk baseball. I've been trying to get on for the last 2 weeks to try to kind of talk getting a spot, but they have pretty much went silent on us, and I don't know why, but these things happen when they have their messages on, but they don't want to respond back. So I don't know what's going on with that. But we'll try to see if we can get on tomorrow's show to talk about the clinching of the Baltimore Orioles, because I surely have a lot to say on the baseball term. Don't forget the Dugout Crew is, of course, on this week on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and I will try to be there myself because I have some things to wrap up for the baseball season that deal with the Mets as well. Now, speaking of what the topics we talked about today, climate change is a big thing that really is irking me right now, folks. We have a president who all his agenda is climate change. That's all he cares about. That's why the country is suffering. That's why our defenses are down, our gas prices are up, and the economy is at its weakest right now. Okay, when you have a president who only cares about one thing, his Green New Deal, and he has nothing else going for him, he is going to be failing. He is going to be a total failure to the country. Why in the heck would you continue to vote for somebody like Joe Biden? Okay, despite the fact that the man is being accused of some shady deals and some frauds and all that other stuff, fair enough. They'll nab him when the appropriate time. But let's slice the issues right now here, folks. The issue is that fossil fuels dominate our emissions in our cars to make them affordable. We cannot afford an electric car unless you make over $60,000 a year and can pay the maintenance costs. All right? Electric cars are going to be something way down in the future. And I'm talking probably the time when I'm not here no more. As far as electric cars are concerned, I don't care about electric cars. They can go rot. You know, we had all this technology and we still have to go and dig for it. You know, that's why the United Auto Workers are on strike right now, Mr. President. It's because of your Green New Deal policies and restrictions on cars. Okay, get it through your thick skull. They are fighting you. They are telling you to either change your ways, which you're not, or they're going to stay on strike and ruin the car industry for everybody. So you can go up on the podium and keep saying, well, these people here don't know what they really want in life, and they're lazy-ass bums. No, the lazy-ass bum is yourself, Mr. President, okay? And don't give me this old, I'm 82 and I need my rest and all this. Look, I know people in their 80s and 90s who freaking work out, man. Look at Jack LaLanne. The man died in his 90s and he was fit as a dog and could probably run the country. Stop using your age and your health problems as an excuse to not run the country effectively. Okay? Stop that right now. Okay? You do not know that this is killing the country. In fact, I don't think you care. I think you're a narcissist. Yeah. You want to come and say to my face that I'm wrong and delusional? I'd love for you to come to my house, Mr. President. I would love for you to do that because I got a lot to say and it ain't going to be pretty. So I'm saying it now. I'm using my freedom of speech, which you would censor on any other given day. And let's talk about censorship, for instance, folks. The very things we say, the very things that have impact on our lives are being censored by people who don't like us in general. I think it's just because of that. Well, you know, to those people I say, too bad. We're going to speak up. We're going to have our say, and there ain't nothing you're going to do about it unless you want to take a gun and boom. But until then, you got nothing. And unless you can back up what I'm saying with something else that's factual and maybe to the truth, then maybe you'll have something to say when it's being said. At that point in time, shut up. Shut up because you really don't have nothing going right now. And if you do, then you might be able to go out there and say it. But until then, don't. Okay? That's the same thing with like the trolls that keep trolling the internet and the YouTube. Because I tell you, my friends on the other channels are getting trolled every other day. I get trolled. My David 3000 Network gets trolled. Everybody gets trolled. And you know what? We're sick and tired of it. It goes back to those individuals. Stop being a troll and actually do something with your life for a change. You know, you might actually have friends, but if you don't want that, what do you want? I'll tell you what you want. You want to be an idiot. Okay. Then I will talk to you as an idiot for the next 6 minutes. You are not going anywhere with your life. You are lazy. You're incompetent. You don't want to get a job. You don't want to drive. You don't want to own your own place. Hey, your choices affect you. They affect everybody. But if you're the kind of person that don't care about, well, if I make this choice and this decision, how is it affecting everybody else? Sir, seriously. Responsibility. You don't want to take responsibility. You want to do drugs. You want to do, you want to have sex all the time. You want to sleep in every day. You don't want to go out there and look for work. You would rather have it handouts and everything else and everything handed to you on a silver platter and think you're entitled to it. Great. But no one cares. And don't expect people to feel sorry for you. Don't expect it. Because at this point in your life, you made the changes. You dug your hole. Now you got to come out of it. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to do it? I would love to hear your explanation on how you're going to dig yourself out of the situations you get yourself into every day. I don't have to worry about that because I don't dig myself deep. Okay? Things get taken care of. They get taken care of when I get to them. That's when it happens. Okay? Not on your watch, and not on anybody else's watch. On my watch. I take responsibility for what I have to do. You need to take responsibility for you. And if you want to keep getting attacked by the individuals that don't like your guts because you keep trolling their channels, hey, there's a reason why they're doing this back to you. All right? And if you don't understand why individuals, I don't have to name names, who are my friends and who work with me on the networks and everything, we're just trying to give you great content out there. What don't you like about the content that we talk about? What don't you like about it? I would love to hear some stuff. I read the comments. If there was ever comments on this program, which there never is. And I've always told everybody, I said, if you have a story or something that you would like us to cover, send us a line, drop us a message. No contact, no communication, folks, means that everything is honky-dory. If there was actually some communication on this news program with people watching, then, great. But it's after the fact. After I go off the air, that's when it all starts to hell break loose. It's like, really? No. Please. So, going back to what we're saying again here, I'm going to continue to complain about this because it's something that needs to be addressed. If the trolls want to continue to troll, fine. But remember this, you are being attacked back. You're being exposed. And you don't like it, tough noogies. Because you know what? That's what happens when you mess with the wrong people. And I've told this to one guy in Michigan a half a dozen times, and yet he still can't get it through his thick skull. Amazing. What are you going to do? You're going to continue to make fake accounts on YouTube? They're going to ban you for life, man. What else are you going to do? You're trying to go on Twitch? Ha! Good luck. You won't even make it as far. Discord, same thing. The monitoring process of everything else on the internet is for those under the age of 18. But here's the thing. All the websites on the social media platform need to cover everybody who's being bullied or harassed in any which way, shape, or form. It needs to be a federal crime. But the problem is we have a president in the federal government right now that don't care about the individual, the victim. He only cares about the criminal. So right now, that's why we have high crime. And right now is why social media is going in a chaotic form. It all makes connections and sense. Whoever's in that White House at any given moment is responsible for our well-being and make us live a life of greatness and stuff. Unfortunately, sad times coming, folks, if you want Joe Biden in for the next 4 years. Hard times. And again, just like back in 2012 when I said it, Obama all over again. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow for another edition of DMS 3000 News Live. I'm Jason DeCanio. Bye for now.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Democracy Network for great more content like this one.